Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and it's the 13th of December, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, I think the biggest news from today was the fact that SBF has finally been formally charged with wire fraud conspiracy, securities fraud, securities fraud conspiracy, and money laundering. And there was also a follow-up charge that just came out before from the SEC, which has charged SBF with defrauding investors in crypto asset trading platform FTX. So finally, some justice, I guess. We don't know, obviously, what his sentence is going to be or what it is right now, but all of these charges, I believe, carries a maximum sentence of life in prison. And honestly, I feel like everyone right now is clamoring for that and that he deserves life in prison. And I agree. I mean, some of the stuff that has come out just before from the SEC basically confirmed what people were saying, where essentially what ended up happening was that Alameda had an unlimited line of credit from FTX, which means that they were able to borrow FTX customer deposits, and SBF basically enabled this to happen, and that's why all the money pretty much went poof, basically, or at least that's the main reason why the customer deposits went poof like that. So yeah, unfortunate obviously for the customers, and there's still the bankruptcy process going through, but that's going to take quite a while. We don't know how much the customers are actually going to get back. It could be as low as 5 to 10% of their total holdings, but yeah, it's kind of hard to tell, right? But still, I'm very, very glad that this has happened. I'm glad that that media tour that SBF was doing and all that other stuff he was doing hasn't actually played into this at all. It doesn't seem like it's helped him at all. And I think that the Bahamian government the Bahamian government, have sent him back to the US, because it's obviously the US here that has charged him with this. This is, I believe, it's the what is it? There's a New York Times article here of it's behind a paywall, of course. Well, the second charge is from the SEC, and the first one I believe is from the the Southern District of New York, I believe. SDNY is the abbreviation that you might see thrown around. But yeah, these are extremely serious charges. The case itself can go either way, right? I'm sure he's going to settle, or I'm sure he's not going to go to court for this. He's not going to front a jury of his peers to get a suit here. Sorry, not a suit, to get a verdict here. But I'm curious to see how this ends up. Like, does he cut a deal really quickly? Is Caroline, the CEO of Alameda, is she turning on him? Like, is she giving evidence in order to cut herself a better deal? There will be deals going around everywhere, and I'm just curious to see what kind of deal SBF cuts. He might cut a deal where he basically tells them everything, tells them who was involved and who wasn't involved, and gives them everything they want, and he may get a reduced sentence because of that. But the legal process is, I mean, I'm not a lawyer. Obviously, I don't know what's going to happen here. But as I said, like, from what I can tell, these charges carry with them a maximum sentence of life in prison. Given he's young, given that he's probably going to fold. Like, I doubt he's going to like keep any secrets from the prosecutors. He's just going to give them everything they want. I kind of struggle to see him going to prison for life, and he may get a sentence where it's like, okay, well, you're in prison for like 20 years, but you're eligible for parole in such and such years. I don't know. I personally just struggle to see him going to prison for life, given his age, because he's so young, and also his connections are going to play into this, whether you think that that's a conspiracy or not. That's definitely going to play into this to an extent, I believe. His political connections, his parents' connections. But all in all, I don't know. I don't see him not serving prison time here, like, given the extent of the charges, given the extent of his guilt. I mean, there's no way for him to beat around the bush here. Like, there's a lot of evidence that show that he is guilty of all of this. And on top of that, there's also the SEC charge. And on top of all of this, even if he is out of prison sometime in the future, he's never going to be able to trade markets again. He's never going to be able to do financial related things again. He's going to be banned from it for life, pretty much. And I mean, I'd struggle to see who'd want to get in bed with him, right? But besides maybe other countries that are not allied with the US, right? China, Russia, other countries like that. Maybe they would want to get in bed with him, but to do another business venture. But yeah, definitely no one in the Western countries will ever get involved with him again. So his life is effectively over. I mean, just like the others out there that kind of collapsed this year. And I put a tweet out today where I said, SBF went down, but Suzu and Carl Davies of 3AC and Do Kwon are still at large, and hopefully they are next. But honestly, like, like I hope they are next. Like, but the thing is that Suzu and Kyle Davies are reportedly in Bali, and Do Kwon is in Serbia, I think. So it's going to be harder for the US to get an arrest here, and for South Korea as well. Obviously, South Korea is going after Do Kwon for them to get an arrest, but I mean, it's still early days, so to speak. I kind of feel like that we haven't seen the last of them. I mean, obviously they're trying to be more public now. I mean, they're always tweeting and things like that. But in terms of their story, I mean, Suzu and Carl Davis are trying to put the 3AC stuff behind them, and they're reportedly trying to raise money for a new fund, and they're reportedly trying to raise it from the Middle East. They seem to have converted to Islam recently, and I feel like that's just a strategy for them to get money from people in the Middle East, and it's so gross when you think about it, right? Like literally LARPing as as someone who believes in Islam or converting to Islam just so you can raise money from Muslim people or from people in the Middle East. It's just bizarre to me that people would go to this extent. But at the same time, like you look at where Suzu and Kyle Davies are today, they known as massive fraudsters of one of the biggest collapses in crypto history with 3AC, and they want to basically get back to where they were of being godlike traders and godlike investors, and they're getting money from wherever they can get it. And then there's Do Kwon, which is in a similar situation where his project and everything he worked, his legacy completely fell apart. Everything he'd worked for fell apart. And now he's trying to do, Terra 2 or Luna 2 or whatever it is, trying to drum up support there. I actually looked at I went through Do Kwon's Twitter feed the other day and looked at all the tweets that he was putting out and retweeting. And then I went and looked at the engagement on those tweets. It was high, but then when going through the engagement itself and the likes and the retweets, there were so many bots and fake accounts on there. So he's either doing that himself or other people are doing it because they're trying to pump their Luna bags, but there's just no organic traction there at all. So anything that you're seeing about Terra and Luna is definitely a lot of it is definitely fake engagement there, but these three aren't the only ones that deserve to go down as well. I mean, a lot of people said, what about Alex Mashinsky from Celsius? Of course, but there's so many of these scammers and grifters that deserve to go to prison or at least pay a really large fine, that it's just too long to list. I mean, some people in the comments were talking about Danny Sesta, the Wonderland, kind of like Frog Nation or whatever it was that happened last year. There's so many of them, all the YouTubers and stuff like that, like BitBoy. There's too many to name, and that's really sad that there's so many of these scammers and grifters. But I think with SBF being taken down, and hopefully these other ones getting taken down as well eventually, it does work to dissuade people in the future. And it does work to make people kind of much more acutely aware of fixing their shop, so to speak. There is a lot of stuff around Binance and CZ right now, and there was a announcement as well that Binance is being investigated for money laundering, but that was like a 4-year-old case, and it seems like the investigators are tossing up what to do here. Like, do they actually prosecute for it, or do they just say to Binance that they owe a fine, or do they reach a settlement? They don't actually know what to do, and that says to me that they don't have enough evidence to be confident of taking this thing to court or taking it to a judge and being able to get a verdict in their favor. So yeah, I mean, then there's also rumors around Binance solvency. As I've said before, I highly doubt Binance is insolvent. You can actually see their addresses on chain and see all the assets in there. Obviously, we don't know their liabilities, but they currently have, I believe, $62 billion worth of assets on chain that are verifiably linked to Binance. So if they have more liabilities than that, I mean, even if they have anything close to that, I would be very, very surprised. In saying that, the number one rule, especially at this point in time, is get your funds off centralized exchanges. Don't leave them on there. If you're a trader and you want to be on there, I mean, fine, take that risk, whatever. But if you're like literally just keeping them there to store them there, just take it off. Buy yourself a hardware wallet, Lattice One, Ledger, whatever it is. Buy it for yourself, get them off the exchange, put them on the hardware wallet, secure that hardware wallet and your seed phrase, of course, and sleep better at night. Because even though I don't believe Binance is insolvent, it doesn't matter, right? Anything can happen to these funds at any time. Like, Binance could just close your account or freeze your funds for an undetermined period of time, and maybe you can get hacked on the centralized exchange as well. Of course, you can get your hardware wallet can get compromised too if you leak your seed phrase, or if someone gets access to the wallet and has your PIN or your passcode. So yeah, just get your funds off centralized exchanges if they're still on there. I mean, I doubt that many of you have funds on centralized exchanges anymore, given what's happened this year. But it's always good to remind your friends and family about this as well if they own crypto. just make sure don't use centralized exchanges as any kind of like medium long-term storage. Maybe short-term if you're keeping it on there for a specific reason, maybe to go to fiat, maybe because you're doing some trades. I can understand that, but long-term storage, that doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah, anyway, I'll keep you guys updated on any new information that comes out about SBF. But for now, it seems like we finally saw him get arrested, finally seen charges against him, and it seems like his PR tour didn't really help him at all. All right, so on to some Ethereum core updates. So I did mention to you guys a bit of drama around EIP 1153 on yesterday's refuel, and this was the EIP that Uniswap was interested in getting included in Shanghai, or not just Uniswap, but other projects as well, included in Shanghai, but it wasn't going to be, or isn't going to be included, and we're hoping that it's going to get included in the fork after Shanghai. But Jesse Polak here from Coinbase gave a take on the Ethereum roadmap today from his point of view, where he says, number one, withdrawals, EOF, 4844, and 1153 are all important upgrades that will ship in 2023. The folks advocating for each are positive contributors, bringing unique perspectives. Our prioritization process is healthier than it's ever been and improving. Is there room for improvement, including both protecting Ethereum's credible neutrality and making sure all voices are heard? Absolutely, but given Ethereum's emerging role as the foundation of the global crypto economy, I'd rather we evolve processes slowly and deliberately. I feel grateful that I'm getting to participate in Ethereum's evolution, both as an individual and as a representative of Coinbase, and I feel grateful that there are so many other brilliant people and orgs working together to build this platform. This is a special time. This encapsulates my thoughts on Ethereum governance generally, and Ethereum's roadmap generally, like, quite well. I went over this yesterday, so I won't spend too much time on this, but basically the Ethereum core development process and core development kind of environment and ecosystem is in the best place it has ever been. It's shipping faster than it has been. A lot more work is being done. We have a lot more funding going on as well through initiatives like the Protocol Guild. We have a lot of exciting updates coming down the pipeline now that we got the merge out of the way. There are other things that obviously are really, really exciting on the roadmap that are coming, that are being worked on. I think, as I've said before, the merge acted as a way to really, I guess, show the world that Ethereum can deliver these big upgrades, and it can do so in a live, massive network where users aren't impacted by the changes at all, and that was a massive boost in morale for the core developers and researchers, of course, and they've just been steadfast working on everything since then. I remember going through after the merge saying, the core developers are going to take like a 4 to 5 week break because of DevCon and things like that, but right after the merge, they were seen working on withdrawals. They were like, screw taking a break, let's do withdrawals, and withdrawals are set for Shanghai in March and April, along with the EOF upgrades. And then hopefully after that, 3 to 6 months after that, we get 4844 and 1153 and possibly some other EIPs. So yeah, as I said, like Ethereum, the Ethereum roadmap is in an awesome place right now. The Ethereum development process on the core protocol is in such an amazing place right now. And it's very, very hard to find a reason to be bearish at this point in time. And speaking of 1153, Hayden Adams from Uniswap put out his own thread what 1153 is. It's not 24 tweets long, it's only like 3 tweets long. He did that as a bit of a troll. But basically the TLDR is that EIP 1153 is a technical gas optimization EIP with a ton of uses written by a prominent core dev before Uniswap v1 was launched. And he's quote tweeting a tweet there from Alexei Sharp, who works at Aragon, so is a core developer himself, where basically he talked about how 1153 was written in 2008 and, what it aimed to do, and there was actually another EIP that came later that didn't go in that was actually worse than 1153. So as I said yesterday, this EIP has been in the works for, I guess it's existed for over 4 years. It hasn't really been in the works for over 4 years. It's just that it got reinvigorated when Uniswap put engineers on it, and then more people got involved with it, and we're like, okay, well, this is actually something that's a really great upgrade for Ethereum. Let's get this in, let's put the work behind it in order to get it in. Because at the end of the day, if no one's a champion of an EIP, if no one's putting the work in to actually get it done, then it's not going to get done. And even the most popular EIPs like EIP 1559 were delayed because there wasn't anyone seriously working on it. Like there were a lot of people talking about it and saying, this would be awesome to get in. There was research being done, but no one was seriously working on it. No one took charge to get it over the finish line, or to even get it anywhere near the finish line, until Tim Biko came along. And this was his claim to fame, so to speak, and obviously he's done a lot more since then, but this was his first kind of big foray, I believe, into Ethereum core protocol development, and what put his name on the map was basically being the one to steward EIP 1559 to mainnet. And without him, it would have taken probably longer, or maybe we never would have got 1559 without his stewardship there. So it's very, very important for EIPs to have people that care about them, not just one person, but a bunch of them, but also important to have people that care about them from different kind of categories, right? You have the researchers, you have developers, you have the community more generally, you have educators, right? Like, you need people from all walks of life to care about an EIP, but it's a sum of all of those parts. You can't just have like the community members screaming about it, saying this would be awesome, without someone actually developing it and researching it and making sure that it's fit for mainnet, right? So yeah. Anyway, you can go give this little thread from Hayden a read there. Next up is a tweet from Vitalik, which basically is got to do with the tweet that Jesse put out, or at least is in the same, I guess, vein as the tweet Jesse put out, where he says, "IMO, the best argument against any EVM improvements is that it's much harder to remove EVM features than to add them. And so a culture where ongoing EVM improvements are expected means EVM keeps complexifying. Some EVM changes are good, but that's the trade-off to weigh against. If we can find a way to automatically convert older version EVM code into newer version EVM code, that would, of course, significantly reduce the trade-off." This is a very good point that I don't think many people talk about or really think about, is that we add features all the time, but it's very rare for us to actually remove features from the EVM. I think the last time we did it was removing the self-destruct opcode, which is the gas refund thing that people were taking advantage of. But other than that, I can't really remember anything that has been outright removed on the EVM. I'm sure there has been other things, but right now, I just can't remember off the top of my head, but generally it's about adding stuff to the EVM rather than removing stuff. Now, the optimist in us can say that, well, when we add stuff, it means that we really want it and it's actually driving a lot of value for Ethereum and the EVM, so why would we remove it in the future? It doesn't really make any sense. Well, I mean, yes and no. There could be things that go in and then later on we decide, okay, well, it wasn't actually that valuable. It's actually having a negative impact on the network and people aren't really using it and it's kind of taking up all these resources. Let's just remove it or replace it with something else. And that could happen, definitely. That's what happened with the self-destruct opcode, right? So it can happen, it does happen, but I think Vitalik's point here about making sure that we don't add too much complexity to the EVM at layer 1 is very important. Now, at layer 2, you can do whatever you want, really. I mean, you can, and the thing is that teams are doing whatever they want with the EVM at layer 2. I mean, I covered last week how Polygon was able to modify the EVM to do parallelization. I've covered the Monad team before that is working on EVM improvements. Arbitrum and Optimism are doing their own EVM improvements. So when thinking about the EVM as a thing, it's not just limited to Ethereum layer 1, it basically encapsulates all of these different networks using it as well. But of course, they do base themselves off of Ethereum layer 1, but Ethereum layer 1 is always going to move slower. It's always going to be more conservative than these other layers. So just a great point from Vitalik that I felt was worth bringing up. All right, Michael Sproul here from the Sigma Prime team announced today that he is joining the Lido community administering the list of MEV relays used by Lido validators. Previously, I criticized Lido's contribution to censorship because of the requirement to use censoring relays. I believe the updated policy improves this. So the updated policy includes, he says here, that Hazu and the Flashbots crew successfully advocated for the use of MEV bid minimums. That's the min bid that I've been talking about on there. And then basically Lido has implemented this policy, I believe, where they're using the min bid, from what I can tell here. And the intent of the policy has been clarified to emphasize that node operators have freedom in choosing their relays as well on the Lido side. So they just need to maintain profitability at an acceptable level and run some relays from the must include list. And in the last few weeks, we've seen an explosion of new relays, as Michael points out here. And then he links to some of the websites that I've covered before. But you can read his whole thread. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But great to see Lido embracing a more open relayer kind of ecosystem here. And speaking of Mevboost relayers, we have Tony here with a new diagram on his Mevboost.pics website. So it shows that Medium Validator receives 0.04 ETH for proposing a third-party block, with more than 70% passing censoring relayers over the last 14 days. So it's not even worth sacrificing censorship resistance to do this. And that's why Flashbots had their min bid amount of 0.05 ETH. because the median is so low, is that like there's no point talking to a censoring relayer to relay your transactions if you're not going to profit more than that amount anyway, right? More than 0.05. So you just build the blocks locally, and there is a slight APR hit of 0.2%, I believe, but like it's basically negligible, right? So yeah, I mean, he's added this this kind of chart here to Mevboost.pics to visualize this, which you can check out, and I'll link it in the YouTube description below. And he also put out a new visualization, or I guess like maybe not a new visualization, but a visualization today of MEV being beautiful here. And this is basically showing the builders and the relayer infrastructure. So there's a lot more builders now. On the left-hand side, you can see the explosion in builders, and also there's a lot more relayers here that these builders send their bundles to, which is great to see. So just another way to visualize the emerging MEV ecosystem here between builders and relayers, which I don't know if this is live on one of his websites yet, but you can, maybe it's live on Mevboost.pics. Yes, it is. So it is live on Mevboost.pics at the bottom here. I believe this was live last time as well when I highlighted this website, but this will obviously keep getting updated, and we'll see a much better ecosystem flourish as time goes on. But Mevboost.pics is probably the best website right now for tracking all stats related to MEV Boost related things, whereas mevwatch.info is definitely the best site for tracking the censorship concerns and the censoring relays and all that stuff there. But yeah, this is great. And this is actually at the top here. They've got some pie charts of the relayers market. It does a really great job of showing you what the relayers market looks like right now. So on the left-hand side is the total block market. So this includes all blocks on Ethereum. And on the right-hand side, this is just the MEV boosted block market. As you can see, it's looking much healthier these days. I mean, you remember that flashbots of the MEV boosted block market was actually up at like 97% just a few months ago. Now it's down to 64%. And on the total block market, they're at 57%, which hopefully they'll get below 50% there. But we obviously want to see these other, I guess, relays getting more market share over time, which they will. And yeah, that was awesome to see from Tony here. All right, so I don't know if I've covered Stater Ethereum before on the Refuel. I believe I may have once before, but they're basically a new liquid staking derivative project for Ethereum here. So they published their vision today, so their, I guess, like LSD vision, and there's a tweet thread and a blog post you can check out here. But as I've said to you guys, over time, we're going to see more and more of these LSD providers spin up. I mean, the business case and the business opportunity is just too large, and they made a good point in that right now, the two most preferred ways of staking ETH are liquid staking and centralized exchanges, whereas liquid staking has 33% of the market share and centralized exchanges have 29%, but most of the liquid staking share is dominated by one player, being Lido, of course, at 90%, and that's obviously not ideal for the ecosystem. So Stater is a solution here, obviously bringing more liquid staking derivatives to the market. Obviously, Rocket Pool is already live, and you guys can go stake with them, but I think that the distinction between like an LSD and a centralized exchange is kind of blurred, because centralized exchanges like Coinbase and Binance have an LSD attached to their staking, I guess, staking offering. So for example, there is CBETH and there is BETH from Binance, so Coinbase and Binance respectively, where they are LSDs essentially. But I think it's still worth splitting it out, where a centralized exchange is not just an LSD. Like their business is obviously being a centralized exchange first, and they offer staking. Whereas an LSD such as Lido, I mean, their whole business, and Rocket Pool, the whole business is staking Ethereum, right? Or staking. I mean, in Lido's case, it's also staking other networks, but their whole business is staking. It's not anything else. So from that perspective, I think it definitely is worth splitting it out, especially because it lets us break it down even further and see that right now the liquid staking market is just too dominated by Lido, and that'll change over time through, as I said, things like Stater going live, and there's Swell Network, and there's a bunch of others, well, Stakewise V3 and Rocket Pool are obviously already being live. And this is just going to improve the staking ecosystem over time, of course. But you can go check out Stater for yourself. I'll link this in the YouTube description below for you to give a read. All right, so LlamaNode's RPCs are finally live. Now, I've talked about LlamaNode before. It's basically a set of RPCs that are aiming to be, like, I guess, privacy-preserving and non-censoring. So they're calling it a reliable public good built for the decentralized world. And you can go check out the blog post here for details on this and all the RPC details that you need to get started. Now, you do need an API key that you can get on their dashboard page here. It's quite easy to set this up, but once you do, you can start using the LlamaNode, RPC. There is also going to be a premium version of this, but this is just for larger users and dapps, and this is just being done to keep the lights on. So as a regular everyday user, even if you're a bit of a power user, I think that you should be fine and you wouldn't need the premium tier. But yeah, this is definitely a good way to do it, because larger users, like super active, more than I guess a kind of like enthusiast using the LlamaNode's infrastructure. Definitely, if you're getting a lot of value out of it, you should pay for it. Same with dapps and networks and things like that. So just great to see this launched from the DeFi Llama team here today, and you can go check this out. But of course, LlamaNodes is just one RPC in a sea of them, but they're definitely aiming to be the one that is, I guess, sticking with Ethereum principles the most, such as non-censoring, non-tracking, privacy preserving, all that good stuff there. All right, so Mahalo from Polygon put out a tweet thread today where he said, one of the frequent questions that we get is why Polygon has multiple ZK efforts/teams. And then he says, a short thread on why we picked this strategy and how it is playing out so far. And you can give this thread a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But basically, I think the TLDR of this thread is that they wanted to bet big on ZK tech and get to the holy grail of a zkEVM in the shortest possible time period. And Mahalo says, 3 to 5 years was unacceptable. So basically, tackling that problem from multiple angles with multiple teams allowed them to spin up the process, and they basically have a clear roadmap for the next 1 to 2 years of getting a zkEVM to the point where a bustling ecosystem can evolve and users can use it and get the benefits of cheap fees and faster transactions and all that good stuff there. But I highly recommend giving this thread a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, so CowSwap has a really big announcement today where they said limit orders are now live on Cow Protocol or CowSwap here. So we say that limit orders on Cow Protocol are unlimited because traders can set and cancel limit orders without paying gas fees. Use one wallet balance to place multiple orders and benefit from protocol-generated surplus above and beyond the prices they target. So yeah, you can read the thread for more details here and read the blog post, but this is really cool. I've used CowSwap in the past. It's quite a neat protocol to use because it allows you to protect yourself against MEV, which is obviously something that you want to be protecting yourself, especially the toxic MEV like sandwich attacks. And now you can do that with limit orders. And you can see here a nice little comparison between Cow Protocol and CowSwap and the other decentralized exchange aggregators like Paraswap, Matcha, and 1inch. These charts should be these little tables should be taken with a grain of salt as well, obviously, because it's always the project posting them are going to make themselves look really good as opposed to the other projects. But still, I mean, it gives you an idea of the features that CowSwap has and that the other protocols don't have, at least according to CowSwap, don't have. But yeah, this, as I said, this is a big announcement for them, and you can go check this out for yourself if you are on CowSwap. And even if you aren't, I mean, there's not been a better time to check out CowSwap with limit orders. But I'll link this in the YouTube description below for you to check out. All right, last up here, we have an announcement from Socket, which they said they are bringing a new era to bridges. So they introduced a bridge protection with Risk Harbor today, which is bringing secure and reliable bridging to pave the way for cross-chain innovation. So basically what bridge protection does is it eliminates bridge risks for protocols and users. Guaranteed funds, even in the event of a bridge hack, no hidden losses, such as receiving the full amount you were quoted, and experienced fixed bridging time, no more delays or uncertainty. And then, I mean, there's a blog post you can check out and a little bit more of the thread here, but this is really cool. I think that on-chain insurance and risk management is obviously a product that is needed. There have been multiple attempts in the past at this, and there are always risks around this too, such as the protocol not paying out when they should be paying out, or I guess like the protocol not having enough money to pay out based on whatever got hacked and whatever got exploited. But I think that shouldn't stop projects from continuing to innovate in this area and projects continuing to partner with things that offer this insurance in order to help users protect themselves from things like hacks, because hacks are just a way of life within DeFi and within bridges and everything on chain, right? But there are ways to protect yourself. And this brings up another tangential point here, which I thought was quite funny. I was thinking about this today and really over the last few months, just generally. People always make fun of DeFi and on-chain stuff as being like rug pulls and people losing money to hacks and exploits. But the biggest hacks and exploits have really happened with decentralized things over the past year. Sorry, I shouldn't say biggest hacks and exploits. I should say the biggest losses of user funds has happened due to the centralized things of this year. And that includes 3 Arrows Capital fallout, that includes Terra, that obviously includes FTX, right? Celsius, BlockFi. These things totaled, and I mean, tens of billions, maybe, I don't know if I go as far as hundreds of billions, but very much tens of billions of dollars worth of losses directly for users. If you tally up all the breach hacks and all the DeFi hacks and all the on-chain stuff that I guess like got rugged, and then you also take away the fact that some of those funds were returned, and you just tally up the actual losses incurred by users, I don't think it can actually hold a candle to the centralized exchange losses and the centralized service losses. So it really does speak to the fact that even though DeFi is kind of a Wild West still and on-chain stuff is a Wild West still, and there are risks involved, the risks in CeFi are much greater, I believe. And we've seen a lot of that play out this year, and I believe we'll continue to see that play out as time goes on. But anyway, I think that's going to be it for today on that note. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.